everybody, welcome back to Sticky Floor Friday, the internet movie show that's happy to report there is an update on the Vin Diesel Dwayne Johnson rivalry. I talked about it in this video, but quick recap, Vin Diesel took credit for Dwayne Johnson's acting in Fast 5. So someone finally asked Dwayne about it, and I'm happy to report he did not disappoint. The Hollywood Reporter asked The Rock if he heard about Vin Diesel's story, and The Rock said, quote, "I laughed, and I laughed hard. I think everyone had a laugh at that, and I'll leave it at that. And that I've wished them well. I wish them well on Fast 9, and I wish them the best of luck on Fast 10 and Fast 11, and the rest of the Fast and Furious movies they do that will be without me." Incredible. He downplayed the claim, literally laughing it off, then took the high road by heavily implying it was his decision not to return to the Fast and Furious movies. A masterful babyface response that makes Vin Diesel's claim seem even more absurd. There's literally no response to that doesn't seem petty. However, I know he said he's not going to be in any more Fast and Furious movies, but I know from the wrestling world, you never say never. If it's good for business, we will see Hobbs back in action. Now, Sticky Floor Friday is going old school this week with two previews, and they share a theme, old school. They are both about old things. So let's start with the most obvious old thing, Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. This is our first G.I. Joe movie since 2013's G.I. Joe Retaliation, starring The Rock. And this one focuses on their coolest looking character, the silent but deadly Snake Eyes, and his nemesis Storm Shadow. But naturally, for a big budget feature-length franchise movie, he's not going to be silent here. They have to have him talk, and we have to see his face, and that face has to be handsome, so Henry Golding it is. And you know, I like Henry Golding. He's a charming fella, handsome. Now, I've heard some rumblings from people on the internet that are upset that Snake Eyes talks, and that you see his face, and that you're revealing too much, but in the comics, his face was revealed. It looked like this. Surprising. Oh, it's a white guy. Okay. And I still remember being very intrigued and excited when I watched an episode as a kid and just got the smallest glimpse of Snake Eyes with his mask off. And I haven't seen that clip in like 30 years, and looking back on it now, like, it wasn't just that apparently I wasn't just excited that he didn't have his mask on. I was just excited for naked Snake Eyes. But it also played to the mystique of Snake Eyes. You knew there was something going on under the mask. So the big question is whether it's worth pulling back the curtain and digging into this character, jeopardizing that mystique. I think as a toy, it's great to have him as a blank slate because you can imprint whatever story or character you want onto it. But if you're going to make a Snake Eyes movie, you won't get far with a silent protagonist. And let's not forget, this whole venture is rooted in consumerism. Snake Eyes' entire look was actually based on cost savings because an all-black costume didn't require paint, and covering his face meant they didn't have to sculpt a head. So just remember that your favorite G.I. Joe character is based on penny pinching. But my biggest question is, how relevant is G.I. Joe at this point? The last movie, as I said, was in 2013. The only toy lines they release are legacy anniversary collections and adult collector toys. They're not for kids anymore. The last cartoon was in 2010 with G.I. Joe Renegades. So does a side character from a dormant franchise that no longer appeals to kids stand a chance? I barely knew this movie existed until a couple weeks ago, and it was supposed to be released last year. Now, the tone here looks fun, but I kind of wish they'd go further with it. Like, if you're going to lean into the nostalgia, make it more like the cartoons. For instance, in that same episode I talked about with Snake Eyes, they fight giant worms. And that was episode 3. They didn't even ramp up to the ridiculousness. Like, that was it. They were just like, yeah, we're going to fight worms and spiders and stuff. That's the kind of G.I. Joe movie I want to see. The reviews are not great, so why not just blow it all out? You want a real G.I. Joe movie? It's knockoff Mad Max boxers and soldiers dressed like ice cream cones and William Refrigerator Perry and Sergeant Slaughter and S&M leather freaks with crocodiles as pets battling giant worms and killer whales and Transformers. Bring it! Also coming out this week is another movie about old things. M. Night Shyamalan's Old. And no matter what you think of this guy, it is always fun to talk about Shyamalan. He's an incredibly polarizing writer-director, mostly because of his wildly uneven filmography. Here's a guy who burst onto the scene in 1999 with The Sixth Sense and was immediately anointed as the next Spielberg. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone. guess I'll just spend the rest of my career disappointing you. Well, Shyamalan's biggest strength is coming up with an undeniable premise. His characters and dialogue are fairly stock, sometimes a little embarrassing, not really written like real people, but he knows a great idea when he sees one. The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, Split, and now Old. All excellent elevator pitches. I see dead people. I can't be killed. I'm a lady in the water. What if there was a village? Plants are killing us. Okay, they aren't all great, but he had an incredibly strong start. Then he got reduced to a one-trick pony, plot twist guy who liked to pull the rug out from his audience with a big reveal. And by the time The Village came out in 2004, the audience got ahead of him. You watch that movie and you were just waiting for the big twist, and when it's delivered right on time, it's disappointing in how predictable it feels. It's hard to even judge if it's good or not at that point because it never stands a chance of being a surprise. Audiences were tired of Shyamalan, and he may have felt the same way about them because he fought back with Lady in the Water by creating a film critic character, making him incredibly obnoxious, and then killing him off. Which might have been more fun if the movies weren't so self-absorbed and half-baked at that point. It's like when a comedian scolds the crowd for not laughing at his bad jokes. The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, an epic trilogy of bad jokes. He went from unbreakable to unemployable. But when no one believed in him anymore, myself included, he still believed in himself. He couldn't even raise money after those 3 movies for his next one, The Visit, so he took out a $5 million loan on his house and funded it himself. He also teamed with Jason Blum and Blumhouse, the kings of micro-budget horror that almost always turn a profit, and The Visit made nearly $100 million. Then he did it again with Split, an even bigger hit with a twist that audiences legit were not expecting, and maybe that's because it was a cheap tack on to give him a backdoor sequel to Unbreakable, but it worked this time. Next came Glass, which was pretty disappointing, but still not his worst, and it made tons of money, and I fully admit, I thought he was done. I didn't think it was possible to come back from this. But I was wrong, and he proved us all wrong by trusting that he had more stories in him, and they were worth telling, and he bet on himself. So here we are with Old, another movie with a genius conceit. What does everyone fear most? Getting old. You can't stop Father Time. We do everything to try and stay young. So what if you got old in one day? What if you watched your children grow up literally before your eyes? God, it's a great concept. I love it. But I'm also scared. Not because it will terrify me, but because this idea is so rich with emotion and pathos. It requires the ability to write dialogue and characters, and the trailer makes it seem like it just sort of devolves into a rote thriller. I want the execution to match the premise. Does he have what it takes to pull it off now? And I still don't know, but it's going to be interesting to find out. He's such a wild card, and at this point, it's just kind of fun to see what happens. The reviews are divided, no surprise there, with critics saying it's either shockingly awful or actually kind of great. The rules of cinema state you must have a strong opinion about Shyamalan, one way or the other. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, but at this point I've learned to never count him out. Alright, since this is an old school episode, let's bring back 3 questions. Number 1, today, right now, at this moment, do you have any feelings whatsoever about G.I. Joe? Number 2, where are you with M. Night Shyamalan these days? And number 3, the Dune trailer is out. Do you think it will do well enough that they'll actually make the second half? I'm afraid even if they finally made Dune work, no one's going to see it. It's a real Blade Runner 2049 situation. I hope I'm wrong.